colleges have grown by 43% in the last year alone.
The number of colleges?
Yeah. Is the opportunity for individual rising or the education is degrading? What is your opinion on this?
I suspect it is both. The opportunity for the individual is rising because I think the overall visibility of the management graduate is increasing, and more organizations are looking at the need for MBAs in their company. So therefore the demand side is there. But at the same time, with this kind of growth, the infrastructure, faculty, teaching methods required to develop good candidates, that would also be under pressure. So that's the other downside of something like that.
What is your opinion, viewpoint about the CSR?
I think particularly in a country like India, companies should take much more efforts to not look only at their normal stakeholders. More and more companies are now starting to look at multiple stakeholders rather than only shareholders. So to that extent, employees, franchisees, distributors, shareholders, they're all becoming important. But companies should also look at the community in which they live in and the disadvantaged sections in the community and see how they can partner with them through win-win situation to help them and without compromising the interests of the company. And I also feel that the company should take money out of their profits to directly help donate.
So, but then considering the scenario like when we enable rural men to work, training them, giving training to them, obviously the cost of production is going to go down. But still the goods are priced high. So it's more towards making profit.
Explain that a little more, I can understand.
Like instead of getting a technician or a trained man to work, we rather, as a CSR activity, we help rural people to get job. We pay them. But the amount we are going to pay them is not the same as we are going to pay for any technician.
Maybe not. If I were to take our own example, in 1986, people from Titan went into various villages of Tamil Nadu and recruited young boys and girls who had just completed 10th standard. So instead of recruiting people who had completed diploma in ITI, for example in mechanical engineering or a foundry or whatever it is, which would have been the logical thing to do, the earliest CSR activity of the company started in this way. So all the 1,000 plus people who are working in Hosur today, who have completed 20 years or more, started in the company when they were 14 and 15 and 16. They had just completed 10th standard. We trained them to be a technician. Okay. So in a way, we changed the lives of so many of those people. And today, if you look at the earnings, they're nothing. In fact, the highest paid in Hosur are from Titan. So it's not that we've saved money in the way that you're saying it would have happened. But we certainly changed the lives of them.
And talking about the Kanya program, what is the eligibility criteria for a girl child to get education through the program?
Actually, we are not into determining the eligibility. What the partners that we are with, which is Mahindra's and the organization called Impact, they have professionals from the field of education, from the field of NGOs, working with them to define the pockets that they should go to. They typically go to pockets where the literacy levels are low, where the male-female relationship aspect is very, very lopsided, and therefore the maximum benefits can actually come if the program is successful. And they identify villages in Odisha, in Haryana, in Rajasthan, on the basis of that. So we leave the decision on the criteria, deciding on which village to go to, how to select the children and all to them, and even running the program itself. We just visit those places to just make sure that 95% of the money that we're giving is reaching the children as opposed to getting eaten up by the administrative costs of these organizations. And the methodology, we assess how good are the teachers. We attend classes to see how good the classes are. And the reports come to us in terms of the performance of the children. So our role is in areas where we have a capability, and we don't get into areas where we don't.
So what traits do you consider for an MBA graduate? Like you had from IIM, the current scenario.
What should
Traits
should
should
be?
be.
I think the most important first trait I would look for is somebody who doesn't immediately start thinking of himself or herself as a strategist who will sit in the head office and come up with these grand plans to, as opposed to somebody who's got total enthusiasm to dirty his hands in knowing whatever. So if you're in sales, I mean, you hit the streets all the day, from early morning to late night. You travel in the trucks with the distributor to the deepest parts of the country. You club shop with the dealer with a cup of chai late night and learn the ropes. So immerse yourself into the nuts and bolts of the business and become thorough. But that's the foundation. The second is the ability to make friends, win over people, influence, and generally be a very good person to have around, who generates energy, in whatever atmosphere that. Because finally, the leadership, when you move into the positions, those, especially your people skills, become more than any other skill important. Both in terms of identifying who are the right people to run whatever teams. I mean, if I were to take myself, if I can figure out that for sales and marketing I need this kind of a person, and this person, particular person, for manufacturing I need this person, to identify that right talent is a talent in itself. And thereafter engaging with all the people in the organization, inspiring them, motivating them, and all of us of course have different styles, but within that style. So that would be a second thing. The third is a high level of team play, as opposed to I am the man who is making the difference kind of approach. So these three things.
During the initial period of Tanishq, that is 1995, Tanishq, an entirely new concept in the Indian market, thus had to struggle to accept it by the customers, as the industry watchers were extremely skeptical of Tanishq, and doubt were being cast over its prospect. Tanishq began by offering jewelries of 18 karat gold range, and with the designs of borrowed heavily from contemporary European brands. The company justified its decision saying that it wanted to be different from the traditional Indian offering, and they had to undergo some problems during that particular time. So what would you like to comment on that?
So obviously we felt that we were ready for doing something like this in '95. In the country, the customers were not ready. So we learned over the next 2 to 3 years, we learned that we had to go into the traditional gold jewelry, 22-karat jewelry, and a little later in 2000, 2001, traditional 22-karat jewelry. Fortunately for us, we stuck it out. We didn't. Everyone was waiting for us to fold up and say bye. People have written us off saying that it cannot be done. But fortunately, we stayed the course and spent a lot of time in learning from the market, from customers, instead of the same point that I was sitting in head office saying, I know what is right for the customer, as opposed to can I talk to the customer and understand what she wants. Can I take a lot of effort to understand what she wants. We did that. And changed the way, but we've still retained some of the original aspects of that. So it's now a very good combination of leading the customer and following the customer goals.
So what was the retail strategy that you used to solve this particular situation?
We also, our showrooms used to look very five-star in the early days. There was just a door and everything else was granite, So it was a very imposing, not for me, 5-star kind of place. Nobody would even come in. But then around 2002 we started opening that, putting glass. So people could see other people. And it didn't look that much of a 5-star. And they started coming in. And so from a retail point of view, that was one. The second thing was we also wanted to create a very different customer experience, and we didn't want to push customers so much into buying. So if we bought, okay. If we didn't buy, it's okay. So if you came here just to look around, no problem. So we were aligning ourselves with a new way of shopping. Self-service shopping was starting in India, in department stores. Now it's virtually everything is self-service. So how do we, obviously jewelry cannot be self-service, but how can it come as close as possible? Self-service is a format where you go, you check out, if you don't like something, you just walk out. That is the notion of self-service, right? So in a Tanishq store, customers can come in and look around and look, and there's no pressure to buy. So that was another retail strategy. The third important thing was, how do we combine the professionalism of a corporate company and borrow from the warmth of the local jeweler. So the last 7-8 years we have done that well, where almost every customer is made to feel that she's part of the Tanishq family. And there is a certain warmth and bonding. As much as possible that relationship which a local jeweler has. But at the same time, there's transparency, it's ethical, everything is clean and known. Different customers are not given different prices, which would happen in a jeweler.
So Tanishq was the largest overseas chain in US. In the year 2000, exported contributed 10% to the company's turnover. And the story of Tanishq, once written off as a losing proportion earlier, making a remarkable turnaround, was an example of a company single-mindedly working to make its own mark in the traditional bond Indian jewelry market. Behind the success was, of course, a well-planned and well-executed marketing plan. So, can you comment something on the marketing plan, in fact?
Many things. One, we always were very well known for collection and design and stories told in a window. Whereas typically jewelry used to be sold as an assortment of rings and bangles. So whereas we created stories. So there is a 7-stone story of an Arya or a Ganga or a Jodha Akbar. So stories, behind design was one. But at the same time, in the last at least 10 years, we also went into stories which are very traditional Indian and therefore popular, as opposed to maybe a Western kind of a story. So that broad-based the appeal. The second thing was that our advertising campaigns used to be very Western 10 years back. Starting 2006 or 7, we made it very Indian. And today Tanishq is all about relationships. You would have seen a lot of Tanishq films in the last 50 years. It's all about husband, wife, brother, sister. And also one kind of relationship. It's a modern 21st century where the boy and the girl are equal. It's not whereas if you see a traditional jeweler's ad, there is the relationship is the husband is here and the wife. Maybe a modern family, but still it is like this. Whereas in a Tanishq ad, it's not like this. The wife is a very good equal of the husband. And therefore, through that, we connect with a certain modern woman. We may not connect with the traditional, but we clearly connect. That's the second thing in terms of branding, marketing. And the third is we have a golden harvest jewelry purchase scheme through which we made a lot of inroads into the middle class and tapped into the desire for Indians to save up. So these 3 things which I would say.
Sir, the last question. Can you, not a question actually, what the message that you would like to give to the students of IFIM and the program Convergence?
I would just go back to what Professor Abhinathan was talking about. Each person was to think that what would happen if I don't throw the garbage on the road, then India would be a clean nation. I think somehow you get the feeling, maybe you think about, share it with you, that as individuals we are rather more selfish. I'm not talking India as a nation, but Indians as a people. Somehow Indians are more selfish as a people than many of the other societies. I don't know why, but I do feel that. It's so much about me and myself, so whether it is getting ahead in a queue or getting ahead at the red light, or I'll somehow be the first to achieve something. And these achievements are hardly achievements also, but I think that if all of the IFIM graduates were to sort of think about it, reflect on it, and therefore, in a way, that's also a broader sense of ethics that I wanted to talk about. You're in business, for what? And to us, the Mr. Tata's principles of if you do something which is good for the society, profits will always follow. Something like this, exactly, reputation, I forget, but something like this. It's a very, very important philosophy. And many of the Tata companies are doing exceptionally well, despite having a philosophy of that broadly. That means obviously not doing exactly that. And so it's and therefore when you go out and you say you're working for a Tata company, immediately the other person says, oh, yes, yes. So that how can we create more and more such organizations? Why does it still remain unique? It is still unique. I mean, Infosys is a modern, great example. But Infosys is still not in the league of the Tata, because Infosys perhaps is still a little more Mr. Murthy-centric. But it's also a much younger company, I'm sure. So how can each IFIM student sort of imbibe that, are you all that you're interested in is to, what can be the maximum CTC that I can get when I'm passing out? I got 20 lakhs, 30 lakhs, whatever. Is that the trip in life, or something much more meaningful? Something very interesting that Salman Khan said in an interview. And I was thinking about it when one of them was talking about wealth not buying happiness. In an interview he said, I don't remember in response to what question by the interviewer, but there was a question and he said, actually money can buy happiness. We were sitting watching. What is he saying? Money buy you happiness. And then he went on to speak about how all the money that he has and how he is actually contributing to help other people. That is buying happiness. And this, what is the foundation of this? The living. Yeah. So the money that he directly generating to others, how that money is actually buying happiness for other people. So it is a very interesting twist on that thing of money can buy happiness. And so in that sense, therefore, if at an early age, if the IFIM graduates are starting to think about other people as opposed to themselves, I think it will be a very important step to take. And you will find fulfillment and satisfaction of a very different and a much higher order in that way of working.
Thank you for giving us some time for the interview.
Sure. All the very best.
Thanks a lot, sir.